Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode, and we have Dr. Churchill's. And most important thing is that he is from a famous background, and he is running for US presidential candidate. And most important thing is that he have a vast knowledge in science and technology and about the 21st century. Hello, Dr. Churchill. How are you today?
Hello, Sharif. I'm blessed. And how are you?
Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. Sir, we know that you are from a very famous background, especially your grandfather was Winston Churchill, and he was one of the
Indeed.
famous men. Can you please introduce your background and introduce yourself and actually how you want to say about your grandparent?
Well, I would prefer, to speak about today and about myself. My grandfather, I think he spoke very eloquently about himself through his actions. And I believe this is the way that we all define ourselves through our own individual actions. So I will allow my actions to speak for me. And I think they will speak volumes better than me shooting my own horn, which is not a good idea ever. So, nonetheless, most important thing is that I am a love child of the single son of Winston. His name was Radolf, and he's my biological father. He did not raise me, and he was not part of my upbringing in a very big way. But as you know, the good DNA and the good genes, they always skip a generation. So I am of that Churchillian mindset, and I am the one who looks very much like the old man, and also I very much think like him, and I am an independent-minded person just as much as he were. So as you see this, and as you perceive that the future belongs to the independents, not to the ones who are beholden to any particular ideology of the past, because the future, by definition, it belongs in progress. It belongs in a different time. The future has not arrived yet, and therefore you cannot use the ideologies of the past in order to define what the future will look like. So I would suggest to you that I am very much a person of innovation, both in science, in technology, in business, in medicine. As a public health doctor, I define my future as being that of the humanity that I serve. So in politics, I feel the same way. If we take politics from the doctor's perspective, which is, public health, environmental health, and political health, then we have, something that will allow us to go through the trauma of the current times and the difficulties unbidden and unmolested by the past. If we attach ourselves to the past, which the past always, has its own difficulties, then obviously, we will suffer the same diseases that we suffered in the past. So my business is in the future. My business is in the future of this country. My business is the future of the world, and my business is the future of innovation for business, science, technology, and of course, above all else, for public health. We are going through some serious times now as far as public health is concerned, and as you can see, I believe the whole world is suffering out of this ignominy. So I believe it's time to allow a doctor to help the world, heal, instead of those terrible politicians who take us to the civil war and to the division, and they profit by the discontent of the people. So that is my legacy, and I aim to speak for that. And as you know, my grandfather, he did well for himself. But now is my time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Excellent, excellent. Because you are a futurist man and you are thinking about the futurist. In COVID period, what do you want to share? What's happening around the world? What you're understanding, and what the solutions you are thinking that right now you can give for the American people and for the developing nations like Asia Pacific and the South Asia?
Well, we have two options as a people globally. One option is to give in to the despair, to the panic, to the difficulty and the fear that has descended upon us. And that option is exactly what's going on today. We have institutions, we have all the organizations of the state, as well as the organizations of global bodies such as the United Nations and the World Health Organization, guiding us to a state of panic, to a state of despair, to a state of disillusionment with our lives. And I think, this is the wrong way to approach public health. People need a spirit of comfort, a spirit of, if you will, hope, and a spirit of optimism. Because without hope and optimism, you cannot even be well, even if you don't have any illness. So the most important thing I would caution is that you look at this as being the future. And being the future, you have to recognize that it is a future that will be free of the disease that we are facing now. We might face other diseases as we always do, but the future is going to be free of this sickness. Whether you accept that or not, it's irrelevant because that's the reality. And whether it's going to be the time into which you will have a vaccine or not, that's also irrelevant because the health of the nation and the health of the global body is today. And public health knows how to do that by addressing the needs of the people in totality, not just focusing on one little thing and saying we're going to take care of the vaccine and you can put all of our eggs in that one basket. It is not important. There's many other illnesses who are going to be annually recurring and coming. This is just another form of SARS, therefore another form of a seasonal flu. It will blossom and it will subside. It will blossom and subside until we have herd immunity as we are working towards it now. However, we should not forget that taking care of our people to avoid famine, to avoid economic difficulty, and above all else, to avoid the division that is caused by things such as war, civil war within countries, as well, as the war between the poor and the rich, the war between the dispossessed and the ones who are well endowed, the war between privileged and non-privileged, and above all else, the war between the races. If we can avoid that and create a certain sense of public health throughout, then we will be well served. If we forget about that and just focus on delivering something that the pharmaceutical companies can benefit from, which they do, they are profiting at the expense of the hope and at the expense of the expectation for optimism, well, then we will not be well. So everything is connected. This is not a unique episode. So I think we should divorce our conversation from talking about COVID and the future, and we should just talk about future without COVID and without any other illness, because we will deal with every single one of them as it comes. And that's why, as a doctor of public health, I can speak to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is, do not be too concerned about the current epidemic, but focus on having a future unbidden by any panic. Once you get certain level of stasis in the mental landscape, once you stop being stressed out, your health improves. We have many examples of that. So the public health starts from a state into which the people feeling taken care of by the nation, taken care of by the government, and taken care of by the other people. And that is not what we are doing today. Today, we are investing in dispossessing the people. We are investing in dividing the people. We are investing in causing harm. And I suspect that this is the wrong way to go. So perhaps it's time that we need a doctor in the White House to fix these difficult things. And that's why I am running. Ha ha ha. That's our choice.
Yes, sir. As you're running for U.S. presidential candidate, what's the commitment you have for your citizen, for American people? How you want to give them support? What's your commitment for futures, especially healthcare system? We are finding that USA have a lot of challenges, as well as many things happening in terms of economics and science and other things. How do you want to explain the situations and how you want to take responsibility?
Right. I think that's the most important question you brought so far. And I will ask you the same. Do you feel taken care of by your local public health system? Do you feel confident that the challenges you face in your health, in your life today and tomorrow will be met by your national public health system? I believe you do.
No. Yes,
Yes,
I just
you
share with you one
do.
point. Like in Malaysia, if you see the statistics and data and informations,
Yes,
Malaysia so far 32 million people. It's a small
yes,
country, not so big,
yes,
and it has 128 people died. Around
yes.
10,000 people they affected by COVID, and in Asia Pacific, Malaysia playing a very important role and very effective roles with their healthcare systems, and they're handling the COVID situation very well.
I agree. And that's exactly the answer that I want to bring. So I believe, I truly, truly, truly believe, and I want you to emphasize this on me. Public health, individual healthcare, and the taking care of our citizenship is not just a predominant and preordained political, economic, and social idea. It is an absolute human right. To have access to public health is a human right that cannot be denied by anybody. So, regardless of politics, regardless of ideology, and above all else, regardless of which side of the equation of rich or poor you stand, healthcare is an absolute human right. It has to be treated as such, and we have to invest in that. Because what we found out with this epidemic, as well as with earlier ones, is that the lowest common denominator of healthcare, the healthcare for the homeless veteran who is on the street dying from COVID, is what affects the society as a whole. Our healthcare, from the public health perspective, is undivided and indivisible. If you understand what I'm saying, is
Yes,
the
yes.
lowest person, the most forgettable, the most discarded human being on the street, that person's healthcare equates to the average of the healthcare of the whole population. So if we forget for the ones, who don't have healthcare, well, nobody of us has healthcare. So as a public body, as a human being, I must address the issue that the public health does not look as one individual. It looks at the totality of our people. And therefore, the average health of a person is the sum of the health of everybody else. So that's why I say that access to good healthcare is a human right. It is for our benefit to understand that. It is not an economic solution, it is not a political idea, and by no means, this is a socialist idea. It is simple, good home management of our people. For all the people, I mean, for all the health. Because the average person's health dictates the health of everybody else. Am I being understood here? I know sometimes this is difficult to understand, but it's like if people are sick at the street level, they are sick everywhere. This is what we learned from this epidemic. So by addressing the needs of the ones who are most forgotten, we are taking care of the needs of everybody, rich, poor, alike. And that's my platform on healthcare. Healthcare is a human right to not be denied because there is no security in a nation. There is no such thing as national security if we do not have healthcare security. And that is something that the United States is lagging behind many countries of the rest of the world, and especially countries like the United Kingdom, where my grandfather was the one who presided over the direction and the creation of the NHS in the middle of the war. That's something most people do not know. But Winston Churchill created the national healthcare system not on the sunny days of peacetime, but in the very middle of the Second World War, when he commissioned the Beveridge economist out of Cambridge University, somebody that now history knows as Lord Beveridge, to create a platform and to make an economic case by which, after the war, we will keep all the clinics open that we operated during wartime, all the field military hospitals and everything else, in order to take care of the whole population, who is surely greatly traumatized by the war and all the other afflictions. And that is the benefit from the Beveridge report that came because my grandfather asked him to do it in such a way that it would be cheap and cheerful. Imagine, in the middle of the war, asking economists from Cambridge to create a platform for a national healthcare system that will not break the budget, so it will be cheap and cheerful. And that's what they did. We have the national healthcare system in the United Kingdom, which for the last 50 plus years has been considered the best healthcare system in the whole world. And the spending on that was 3.2, maybe 3.7% of the GDP of the United Kingdom in the early years. In America, we were spending close to 19.8% of our gross domestic product, and still one third, maybe sometimes one half of our people are not covered by healthcare. Well, I would say this is obviously a travesty if we are spending one fifth of our capital related to healthcare, and we cannot even cover all of our people. Whereas the other people across the channel, if you will, across the pond in the United Kingdom, they cover everybody, and they used to spend 3.7% of the GDP. Now they are spending sometimes up to 6% because of the European Union or whatnot. But with the Brexit now, it's going to go down again since they're going to be serving only the British people and the English people of the Commonwealth and Northern Ireland, etc., and Scotland. So I am making an economic comparison here only to say that it's possible to do it again in America in a cheap and cheerful way by avoiding the profiteering of the large pharmaceutical companies, the large medical concerns, of course, and the insurance business. So some drastic steps have to be taken, but we can manage to do it again within the budget and obviously covering everybody. And this is my platform.
Thank you. You have a very good idea of public healthcare systems. My question is that around the world, because USA go for more private, everything goes for private, and in that situations, many countries, even following US policy and procedure of capitalism. And now the many of the countries suffering for COVID-19 and other things. But as you are a futurist, as you are a political person, and you have a great commitments about American elections, so how do you want to advise the developing nations that how they can cope up your policy, like about this public health care policy and how it works? What's the dimension you have, or what's the model you have right now, and how you want to consult them or advise them?
Um, Again, I feel terribly humbled to have to advise other nations. Uh, I like to advise United States. I mean, it's my country, but I will take an opportunity because you asked, only because you asked, to give benevolent advice to others. There is such thing called the Commonwealth, which obviously old countries who belonged as part of the Great British Empire. They created a Commonwealth for mutual benefit. Now they have guidelines on how to export the NHS system or the national healthcare system into their own countries and apply the same kind of, it's sort of like a cookie cutter, if you will, technology that can be easily applied. But it is difficult because not everybody around the world has the same traits of personality that the people of the British Isles have. Neither Americans, nor Canadians, nor Australians, nor New Zealanders, nor anyone else. Certainly, Malaysians, though, they have a lot of that attribute of being orderly, of being concerned about each other, of being working for the common benefit and avoiding corruption. So I think in your country, for example, it would work well to create a similar system to the national healthcare system. As a matter of fact, my personal belief is it would work very well in America and in many countries around the world. But it has to be localized, personalized, and somewhat branded for the specific population that we are faced with. So, since populations are as fickle as their national character, as their diet, as their habits, as the way that they take care of themselves, we have to adjust. However, the system in and of itself, as a silo, as a container, as a database, if you will, can work very well throughout the world. I would be happy to connect anyone who is interested in terms of public health for their own nation with this type of policies. We have written some policy, platforms that can be adjusted to a locality all across the globe. And I do believe in the long term of history, as progress is being made, of course, that our idea of having, again, public health, it would encompass all the citizens of this planet, not one country. Because this is another thing that we learned in this epidemic, that people travel. And when somebody gets sick in China, in Wuhan, next thing you know, somebody gets sick in my state, in Western State, in Seattle, and they die here. They came from Wuhan, China. So global health now is public health. It's no longer individual national health. So let's look at global health. Let's look at public health as a perspective. So each one in our own particular nations, we take care of our own particular populations, then we all rise up. And we all increase the capacity of having gainful experiences in our life, unmolested by the pain and disease. And that's my goal. That's what I believe in public health. And that's what I'm striving for, and that's what I'm fighting. So your question is very important. And I would suggest, I would be happy to connect anyone who has an interest in their own national healthcare system with our platform, into which they can create an iteration of the national healthcare system of the United Kingdom into their own country, and to do it again, cheap and cheerful, good enough for the people, and without breaking the bank. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sir, already one of the audience, she said her name is Humaira Tanzila. She said, hello, sir. We are glad to see you here. Surely it can be a very valuable session. Thank you for your time, sir. So I think people are very happy and that you are joining with us.
Well,
Okay, sir.
likewise, I'm very happy to join the World Technology Economy Forum. Thank you, thank you. Very
Thank you.
happy to be
Thank
with
you,
you
sir.
today. And with
Yes.
you, sir, and your comments are always welcome.
Thank you, sir. Sir, beside that, I want to know about the vaccine situations. Like
Yes,
around the world now, you are healthcare expert, as
yes,
well as around the world there are question when actually vaccine will come. Even Oxford University doing a best trials and other things
yes.
right now. What your observation? What do you want to share about the vaccine?
I think, as I said before, there would be very many vaccines. In the near future, everybody would have their own. So the dominant game that we are experiencing right now is the dominant game of the pharmaceutical companies trying to profit from the vaccines. They're using public money for all the trial, for all the development, for all the costs that they have to develop a new product, and then they will sell it to all of us at massive profit. And that is a little bit broken. That is an example of where we have a disconnect because the great companies, the great pharmaceutical companies, they are only interested for the profit of the shareholders and secondarily for the healthcare of the society and the people. I take the opposite view. I support the idea that universities like Oxford University, they can develop within their own laboratory unions in conjunction with private industry vaccines that would be open source. So I caution and I say open source in technology terms, it means that nobody owns the rights to the manufacture of this vaccine. So therefore, it can be manufactured everywhere inexpensively. So in the third world, same as the second world or the first world, improved countries, non-improved countries, as well as impoverished countries, it is quite easy to be able to package and manufacture the vaccine for your own people instead of having to import at great cost vaccines that are made in Switzerland, in England, or in the United States, or in France, or wherever, and bring it to your country under conditions of sterilization as well as refrigeration and anything else that supports it in a healthy state. So then it can be introduced to the host, to the people. That is very expensive. It's difficult logistically, and also it is known already that the people who will receive these vaccinations, of course, they will be the wealthiest of the wealthy countries, and then it's going to trickle down. I don't believe in that. I believe the value of a life, whether it be in Malaysia, whether it be in United Kingdom or the United States, a human being has the same value all across the world. Be it in Afghanistan, be it in Syria, be it in Iraq, be it in South Africa, be it in East Africa or West Africa or North Africa, Asia, Latin America. These people have the same value in terms of life for themselves, for their families, for the children, and we cannot deny them, even for one day's difference, the vaccine that would be available to the Brahmins of Boston or the wealthy people of New York and the leaders of Washington D.C. and their families or the people of San Francisco and Seattle. I disagree. I think a vaccine should be open source the moment it gets developed by our great universities with the public money that we are spending and be given to everyone in the world to manufacture, especially now that we have internet. And that's what I did when I developed the medicine against tuberculosis with other colleagues. We made a cocktail. I put it on the internet the very same day so everybody can recomposite it. The moment we got the FDA approval, we just put it out there. And I believe this is public health. It's not about profit making, this is about saving lives. And we should do it as soon as possible throughout the world.
Very, very good idea. Very good idea. And on the other hand, we also see Dr. Mohammed Yunus. He also taking initiative vaccine for common good. And you have a very good idea in an open source model. So this is the things I think definitely it's going to help us. Besides that, you are expert in science and technology. You have a great commitment on science and technologies. Even in your presidential elections movement, you also focus on science and technology.
Yes.
How do you want to explain the present conditions about the science and technology? What's the futuristic opportunity we have right now, and how much people get benefit from science and technology?
All right. I'm going to give you two examples. In our campaign, we are the only people who are using blockchain. Now, why would you think that we would use blockchain in politics, right? Well, it's not so crazy as it sounds. It's very valuable because blockchain is a unique way of identifying and connecting the vote with the voter, the citizen with the poll. And that can be inalienable and alterable. So this way you guarantee the fairness of any election. As far as our people are concerned, they want to identify themselves with their vote and they want to be streamlined So they do know that they can avoid what we call today malfeasance in politics. As you know, a lot of that is going on. People are stealing elections left and right. Look what's happening out in the East, whether it's Belarus, where the problem is today, or whether it is, even Russia or many other places where they do not have free and fair elections. So blockchain will solve all of these problems, and that's one part of technology that we are using and that I initiated into the world of politics, voting, and electioneering. Nobody else is using it because they still believe they can steal the elections. So, but when we fail to guarantee the sanctity of the vote of the person that goes to the poll, then we fail democracy, and therefore we fail our constitutional reality and our republic. So my contribution in technology, straight up, and in innovation of politics, electioneering, and elections is that let's use blockchain to guarantee the integrity of our elections, of our votes, and of our polls. That's one thing. I think you would appreciate that, and the audience of technologically minded people will thrive in understanding that. And I would like to share again in an open source way throughout the world with any country and any people who want to use it, how to utilize blockchain in order to secure the elections and to make them fair and foremost just for everybody. So I want again to open source this and give it to you and give it to anybody else who wants to use it. But this is the best political innovation that we have, except it's not political, it's technological. Not everything has to be political. This is technology. Use the blockchain not for making, bitcoins and using other things, just simply supporting the voting method. Isn't that beautiful? Do
Yes,
you appreciate,
definitely.
do you appreciate the gravity of that? Do you appreciate that in the next 100 years, I believe, there will not be a single election on this earth that does not guarantee the outcome, of that vote on the blockchain? Because that's an open contract that cannot be violated. And you can go back and check it and make sure that nobody steals your vote or misplaces it or puts it for somebody else. So that's a very important thing. That's one. And I think you take note of that. The second thing that I believe, is very important in terms of technological innovation in today's politics, and I kid you not, which is very important, is to allow all of our people through the blockchain system to be able to vote from their mobile phones. Because we can eliminate corruption by utilizing the blockchain and connect it to the number, the telephone of each one of us. We all have it. And there you go. All of a sudden, you have almost guaranteed free and fair elections that everybody who is entitled to participate can participate. These two things can change the nature of the elections and remove a lot of the conspiracies, a lot of the difficulties, a lot of the corruption from our public electoral systems.
Mhm. Yes, yeah. This is very good idea. This is very good idea. Beside that, I have a question in mind. Let's say at present conditions,
Yeah,
USA has a lot of challenges, especially political challenges. On the other hand, USA has healthcare related challenges. Let's
yeah.
say you own the elections
Mhm.
and you take over the White House, your position. So how do you want to like solve these things? How you want to reunited your nations, as well as how you want to make the international relationship? What's your strategy? What's your commitment? How do you want to think about that?
Thank you. This is a very prescient question. The first thing, God willing, if we win this election, we will celebrate a lot.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a big kick-ass party, that I don't know how long it'll take us to recover, but I expect maybe 48 hours and maybe more. Because the good thing with the US elections is that the election happens in November, early November, but you have a few months until you get inaugurated and you go to the White House, which happens on the 20th of January of the next year. So you have enough time to recover from a big party that you absolutely must have. So having said that, of course, there is a lot of work going in beforehand to create cabinets, to create policies, to be briefed, to create platforms. So it's not easy. But all humor aside about big parties, everybody likes a big party and a big celebration, having worked so hard in accomplishing this amazing result. But I have one plan that would put into perspective everything. So God willing, as I said, if we get to that stage into which we win this amazing mantle of leadership, which is a global leadership mantle. This is, let's not kid ourselves with the United States. We are a global leadership. We will first take a brush and change the name of that place that you call the White House. No more White House. We
Okay.
call it the
Okay.
People's House. Once it becomes the People's House, then we have the necessary humility and the necessary understanding for whom we are working. Because somehow the people who are there sometimes they lose sight of the idea who is their boss. For me, there is no question about it. The people is my boss, and I am there to serve them. So do not forget that we will call that house the people's house. And then everything flows from that. We get a measure of humility, we take our pride out of the equation, and we have an open house for always. People can come in there because it is their house, and they can talk to somebody, and they can find solutions to the problem. And if they cannot travel, we will find a way to listen to them via the telephone, via the email. But most importantly, we will also provide airfare tickets for the ones who cannot travel on their own accord to come and visit the people's house and be heard. Because my priority, my vision is to hear all the people and to be a people's president and to be able to have a communication as we have today with everyone. I won't only read and listen to the emails and the telephone calls of the powerful and the wealthy. That's not my interest. I'm not at all there. I'm interested in listening to all the people, and I would make it possible so they can come and visit. So I hope this answers you.
Mhm. Yes, this is the excellent idea you have. You have blockchain strategy, you have a strategy for healthcare system. Also, you have a strategy. How do you want to change White House name? It's a very good idea, People's House. This is actually really amazing and so much of positive vibe. And definitely all of the politicians around the world, they should learn that how a committed people can change a place names and it can be a people house. And the people is definitely, this is as per politics, people is the politician's boss. People should give them guidelines and other thing. Beside that, I want to know, what do you think about the global relationship? USA has even like China and USA has some sort of tensions. Even COVID situations, there this tension grow and grow and grow. So in that situation, how do you want to handle this US and China relationship, as well as how you want to handle this global relationship?
Uh, Again, I think this is a very challenging question, and I thank you for that because we should not forget that the Pacific is not a moat. The Pacific does not have crocodiles and sharks, to separate us from each other. It's actually the biggest highway in the world there is. It connects us. On both sides of the Pacific, the United States and China and Japan and all the other countries, including Russia, we have common interests. And the common interest that we have in the Pacific is something which is called respect. That's how I treat my friends and the other nations. And I believe that if we exercise respect for each other in our international relations, same as we exercise respect towards me and you, towards individuals, we will maintain the peace. If we fail to respect each other, we will go to war. And this is where we are working on now. We are going towards a warlike scenario. But if we put respect in our trade, if we introduce the idea of respecting each other fully, without any bias, without any racial tension, without any tension of who is making more money on the equations of trade, and we start having a respectful dialogue, that will take some time. We can maintain the peace. And this is what's at stake here. A nuclear war with China, an all out destruction, or respectful dialogue, respectful trade agreements, respectful exchanges, respectful understanding, and above all else, the great gift, which I consider in terms of public health and public policy, the greatest gift there is. Number one, in whatever we aspire to do as a people, as a leader, it always has been my mind. Conflict resolution, to maintain the
Mhm.
peace or to bring about peace. Peace is the greatest public good. When you go to school for whatever, you get your PhD at the Kennedy School in Harvard, Kennedy School of Governance, they fail to tell you that simple thing, that the greatest public good there is on earth is peace, nothing else. Nothing else matters if you don't have peace. So I fight for that peace in our times, peace for the future, peace for today, and peace for tomorrow. Not at any cost, no, but peaceful respect, mutual. And if we cannot accomplish that, well, who knows? But I believe with proper leadership, we can accomplish that today and tomorrow, because my business is tomorrow.
Mhm. A very good idea for tomorrow, actually, and how you actually inspiring people. Hopefully, you will get a very good result. And beside that, I want to know, like example, as per our knowledge, like USA presidential candidate, he has vice presidential candidates and other senators and other thing. How your actually political party run the political activities inside USA?
Hmm. I think your question can be broken up in three ways, but I
Okay.
would like you to break it up for me. What do you prefer for me to answer first, second, and third? So
Mhm.
rephrase your question in a more focused format, and I'll take it. Please do.
Yes, my question is that how actually your party, political party, taking initiative in these elections.
Well, if we talk about political party, we are very different than the other political parties because
Mhm.
we are all the independents. Therefore, the definition of political party in our case is a non-party. We
Mhm.
don't have membership dues. People don't need to pay anything to join us. We do not keep the roles of the members so they cannot be somehow molested. We do not maintain any ideological platform that is separate from the founding documents of our country, which is the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, of course, and the Declaration of Independence. So we are the anti-party. And I know that's difficult to understand when you have our name, Lincoln Party, and it says party at the end on the shingle. But the way that we do this and the way that we understand it is we want to have the independence, all of them. And therefore, we cannot put them in the box. We cannot put them in that silo like the other parties do in order to control them. We believe for them to be free. We believe for them to be independent, and they have to voice their consciousness and to vote accordingly. Therefore, our party is in some ways the opposite of the other political parties. And that's what gives us hope. Because today, due to the corruption of both main political parties in the United States, upwards of 75% of the voting public in the United States self identify as independents. Take this number down, it's an extraordinary number. Three-fourths of the people today they dislike both political parties. They, are, they don't like Democrats, they don't like Republicans. They consider both of them the fount of evil. So they self identify as independents, three-quarters of the people, 75%. So I think we stand a good chance by being not a holding pen, by not having this wall around our people to separate them, but instead by being open and inviting anyone from the other political parties as well to voice their consciousness and to vote accordingly. So that's a big difference, and that's why you're so unique in the landscape of political parties.
Mhm. Thank you, sir. Beside that, I want to know, do you have any other candidate like vice presidential candidate
Yes.
or any other senator candidates, or can you share something about them? Like, because we have already 100 countries around the world we are connecting and we are accessing through this World Talent Economy Forum. So maybe we can understand more about you and about your political party.
So the most important thing that we have is that being an open source technological party, we support all the independent candidates. So if you go through the lists throughout the United States, you will see that in this particular election, there is more independent candidates because presidential election happened and there is also congressional elections and senatorial elections at the same time, as well as all the other positions within the system of the state electoral structures. So
Mhm.
this time, we have more independent candidates up and down the hustings, up and down, the electoral system throughout the United States than any time in history. And that tells you the same thing that I told you earlier, that three-fourths of the people of the United States today self-identify as independent. So we are happy to say that we have more independent people exposing themselves than any other time in history. And I believe that will be the same across the world. Many people across the world, they are coming up with fresh ideas. They're embracing technology as well as, the entrepreneurship of innovative politics, and they are choosing to be independent. And I see that movement throughout the East as well as the West. So every place where we have unfettered and free elections, we are able to introduce independent people. And I think that's brilliant. It's one of the very few times that this has happened in history, and if anything, I would call that the new springtime of independence. It's a movement similar to 1776, into which the dependence of the United States was declared, and perhaps today we can declare a new independence from the old political system, a new independence from the old ways, because they will not serve us anymore. And if we want to look at the future, this is our business. So my business is the future. Let's look at that with open eyes and follow the light and forget about the past.
Thank you, sir. Excellent idea. Before that, I want to proceed in that way. Like, you are a futuristic man. You can think about the futures and you can work about the futures. Beside that, you have a political party. So another important problem right now, we have politics has lot of corruptions. Politics has different kind of corruption, and you mention it. So how you want to remove this political corruption?
Well, I'll take you back to an ancient leader, the tribune of Rome, the great Julius Caesar. Before he became a Caesar, of course, he was just a tribune, a leader of the people. And he was a popular person among the plebs. His base was the ordinary people, kind of like me in some ways, that we believe that the people's house is the ultimate house. So he said, in a very simple way, I think in his time, and he was very good with putting together words that had a lot of meaning. But he said, the leaders reflect the people. If the people are corrupt, the leaders would be corrupted too, and vice versa. So I believe we have to use a lot of education. We have to create a new understanding, and we have to bring somewhat of these godly principles of the Ten Commandments and everything else, that we believe in the religions of the world, to do good, to not harm your neighbor, to love each other, to not try to profit at the expense of somebody else, do not be jealous of other people, etc., etc., etc. But above all else, as I said before, show respect for the others. Show humility in all your dealings with others. And do not try to divide the people in order to take control of them. But instead, allow people to join together. And that way we can do well, all of us. We can do very well together, when we are working in some kind of unison for the common benefit, for the common good. Whether that common good is public health, or economic health, or employment, and business, innovation, and technology. So to root out corruption, we have to start from the individual person and educate them better in order to be able to understand that when they deal with public corruption, they do not indulge and they stand against it. So there is not any severity of measures. We don't need to have, many layers of court systems, anti-corruption mechanisms. No. All we need is we need to support the whistleblowers, the people who are just, and they expose the corruption, and then reward them accordingly. And teach the people to not engage into it. So education is my belief that helps to root out the problem of corruption completely.
Very good idea. You have excellent analysis. uh, I want to know more, because I'm actually almost become very good fan of you. So my question is that your
Thank you.
grandfather was very strong man,
Well,
right? Your grandfather of handling the Second World War and many interesting things. Anyway, politically he was strong. So how strong you are, and how you learn from his policy, or what the good policy you want to implement in the present condition or in the future from your grandfather you get?
Well, I think we are only as strong as our rooted principles. I'm a very principled person. I believe in God. I know He endowed our humanity with many, many gifts. And I believe that my connection to the divine, including my blood, my DNA that comes from royalty and aristocracy, and my aristocratic as well as plebeian lineage, allows me to be extremely strong to any circumstances. I can survive, whether it be in a palace or in a tent. And whether I have served my country successfully, in the battlefields of the war, as well as in the common places and the green grass, of our cities and towns and villages, I feel quite confident that given the circumstances, we will not find anybody stronger to be able to handle the difficulties and the shallow water that is coming ahead for us. I'm quite good and I feel quite blessed because our good Creator endowed us with those gifts. And if we only know how to keep them, then the flame, as I said before, the flame of hope and the flame of an expectant, positive future will make all of us strong. So that's
Mhm.
where I am. Unafraid, looking at the sun, looking at the future.
Thank you, thank you. Like example, in USA is a very culturally very diversified country.
Yes.
How do you connect it with the different cultural people? How do you connect it with the different peoples, and how you take their opinions, how you engage with them?
Yes.
So
Most importantly, by speaking, like I speak with you. The old art of parler, like the French say. That's where the word parliament comes from. Speaking with each other, engaging one on one, as well as one to many and many to one. So I engage every day with a different constituency in order to understand both their needs as well as their circumstances. And then if I can help, I always do. So that's how I do it. Speaking, engaging, sharing, breaking bread, and loving each other, because you cannot understand somebody if you don't have this modicum of love that is required to recognize the divine within the other person and the divine within you. In the subcontinent, in India and in Malaysia and in many places, when we meet each other and we greet each other, we say namaste. And namaste is nothing else than I recognize the God in you, Sharif, and I know you recognize the God in me, and that way we come together and we can love each other. So that's how I start. And the rest, very easy. It just follows.
thank
So,
you, thank you, sir.
and I thank you. I think it's time for us to interrupt. I have an engagement that I had committed to before, and I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you and thank all your listeners. And I say, let's do this again at another time. But I'm feeling quite blessed that you invited me and that you take this to the world. And I would like you to keep up the copy of this on YouTube and Facebook and send me also so I can share with my friends and colleagues. And as I said, my promise to all the people who listen throughout the world, I will personally support you in creating a global and a personal within your nation public health system equitable to the national healthcare system of the United Kingdom, which to this day is still the best in the world, and it was created in the middle of the Second World War between the carnage and the difficulty and an uncertain future for the United Kingdom. We did not know that we would survive free and independent there, and yet my grandfather, in the difficulty, he saw the glimpse of hope, and he innovated to bring about a healthcare system that covered everybody. And you know what he said? He said it's political, but he was himself an independent, and he wouldn't let the Tories break it down, or the liberals or the Labour destroy it. That's why he did it within the war, because nobody could object to our people being taken care of in the middle of the conflict and the bloodshed. And he says, I'm going to pass it now and I'm going to do it now, because after the war, when there is peacetime, the Tories are going to tear it down. And remember that this is what happens. When we are in grave danger, as we are today, This is the best time to change the world. Don't wait for peacetime to change the world. We have to do it now. And that's my promise to you, that in this difficult time, the United States is going towards a new civil war, that we know it, that we see it. I will try to avert it. We will make the change the world. So with that, God bless you and Godspeed and victory upon us. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Sharif. And I take
Thank
my
you.
thank you and God bless. I wait.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. It's a very nice discussions with you, and how you actually discuss about healthcare system, about blockchain system, about technology, and specifically the political strategy. It will be enlightened us, and definitely in the future we're gonna invite more in the World Talent Economy Forum. We arrange debate, we arrange different kind of group discussion, policy discussions. So we will learn from your policy, and we will help you to understand and connecting with the around the world. We have connections more than 100 countries right now, many
Okay?
representative, and the many people are actually joining from around the world. So thank you for your valuable time and
Well, thank
everything.
you. And I wanted to counter that with this. I would be willing to give all of your listeners and all of your people the help they want to have a better future in their own countries. And I will invite them to help us and help the Lincoln Party and the independent people all over the world with their skills, their technological skills. So I put this invitation out. Anybody who wants to become a volunteer globally to bring the freedom of the people, a new emancipation against mental slavery, come and talk to me. Give them access to me through you, Sharif, and I will have to invite everyone to volunteer with us to change the world today in the middle of the difficulty. God bless you, my friends, and I wish to see you soonest and join up with me and support us. God bless. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All the best.
Okay, bye.